Caroline Bell here with another live Q&A or Finance in 15. And what we're going to be going through today is how to try and save your first $5,000 to start investing. Now, as always, we'd love to see any comments for who's here, and feel free to write in the comments and say hello. But let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to say is, as we sort of go through some of the examples, it's really important to remember that saving a few dollars here and there really does add up. These really small amounts do sort of turn into larger amounts, even though many people don't realise. And what we really want to focus on as well is mindful spending, so really being conscious about what you're spending. So an easy way of getting started is actually setting up a direct debit into either a savings account or into an investment account if you've got a little bit of money just to at least get started. And even just starting with $50 per month. What we found over the years is when people start with a direct debit into a savings account or an investment account, and if the money's not in the bank account to spend, then they don't spend it. And after a little while, they don't even notice that the money's not there each month. It's human nature that we generally spend what's in the account. If money's not there, then we don't spend it. So starting with, say, $50 per month, and then if you're finding that easy, then go maybe to $70 per month. If you're finding that still easy, until you reach that pain point where you really sort of feel a bit of a difference. Now, something else that we found that many people have found useful over the years is actually tracking your expenses. Now, that's useful if you're sort of really into the detail. And it also helps if you're really trying to build up what actually is, where is money going? And so a lot of people don't realise exactly where they're spending the money. And tracking the expenses just helps with awareness in relation to where the money's actually going. There's a couple of ways of doing it. A lot of people use Excel spreadsheets. Very easy to miss money that you've spent though. These days, particularly if you're spending everything with Apple Pay, Google Pay, debit cards, etc., there's a lot of apps, even within the bank accounts, that helps you track where the money's going. And it just really helps with this concept of being mindful with spending. Now, as we start to get into a couple of little details, it's tax return time. So many people start thinking about their tax return. And given many more have been working from home because of COVID-19, there's probably the ability to claim additional expenses. So when you're working through the tax pack or when speaking to your tax advisor, really sort of focus on, well, what have I been spending at home, working from home in terms of home office, if you had to buy any furniture or any other bits and pieces to be able to work from home effectively, and make sure you claim those in your tax return. A really good way of forced saving as well is actually not spending the tax refund, is actually using that tax refund monies and actually starting to invest or save with tax refunds. Now, something else that is a little bit out of the box, but anything that you're not using or needing at home, or anything that doesn't bring you joy, sell, get rid of. It's great to get rid of clutter anyway. And there's a Gumtree report sort of saying that Australians on average have $4,200 worth of stuff at home that they're really not using. So really sort of use this time to sort of look around home, given lockdown, everyone's spending a lot more time at home, to actually say, okay, is there something that I can sort of sell and actually not only just free up a little bit of space around home, but also just get a little bit of extra cash as well. And of course, this is something more with larger expenses, but try and avoid impulse buying. Even better, sit on the cash for 30 days. So I would say in the first instance, no impulse buying, at least wait 1 day. But even better, if you can really sit on that cash for 30 days, just put it in a savings account. If you still want whatever it is after 30 days, then you know it has a little meaning for you. It's actually, there's value attached to that. Then actually sort of spend the money. But if after 30 days you're a little bit ambivalent about it, then that's a really great way of saving money. And that makes a really big difference with these large expenses as well. Then, of course, it's shopping around. We've got a little bit more time in lockdown, and really sort of pay attention to any services that you're using, and of course the easiest ones, internet, mobile, insurance and electricity. And these days, of course, there's lots of comparison sites that you can use. It's really just sort of making sure you're on the best deal. You know, we generally find that there's a lot of deals for new clients with a lot of these plans and programs, but then once you get past your first year, you're sort of back on the higher expense or the higher cost program. So really look around to see, can you do any better in relation to these, you know, essentially essential services, but there's no need to be paying too much for each of these services. That also goes with rent and interest rates. Particularly anyone who's living in the CBD, as we all know, a lot of apartments in Melbourne at the moment especially, and I know of someone recently stayed in his rental contract came up, staying in the same apartment, but was able to negotiate a 20% discount on the rent that he was paying, just so they weren't left with an empty apartment. So if you are renting, really sort of see if you can negotiate your rent. And with interest rates, just sort of seeing if you get a better deal if you do own your home and paying a mortgage. Can you be doing something about the interest rates that you're paying? Now that also applies to subscriptions as well. Now with any subscriptions, whether it's magazines or anything else you might be subscribing to, do you really make the most of the subscription? We really find, of course, that these subscriptions automatically renew. Most people, of course, don't think to make a note to actually assess whether they want to continue with their subscription at the end of the period. And so if this is a subscription that you've had for a couple of years, maybe you're not really using it to the best effect. And have a think about it. If you actually had, for example, a magazine, if you had to go to the news agency and buy that magazine, would you still be buying it? It's just, of course, there's the convenience when it's delivered to your home, but it's still an expense. So really just sort of have a think about your subscriptions. And of course, something with lockdown is terms of, no one's going out. So in terms of there's no more going out for lunch or dinners. So really sort of think about, well, what would you have spent going out, and sort of see, just put that into the savings account as well for a little bit of extra savings. Then, of course, we're getting into debt. Now, everyone knows this, not always easy that to do, but really pay off the credit cards in that interest-free period, but to be honest, avoid getting into debt anyway. I mean, interest rates are low, of course, but interest is still interest. So it's better not to be paying any interest at all. And even use cash or debit cards. Debit cards, my preference, particularly if you're using an app to track expenses. It's too hard with cash. So debit cards are a really good way of managing not only spending in terms of you're only spending what's in your account, but also then being able to track that in an app if that's what you're using. And of course, there've been several studies that have been done that actually show that people who shop with credit cards on average spend more than those who shop cash or debit cards only. As we all know, shopping with only $40 cash in your wallet, or just having a debit card, is a lot easier or is a lot different than carrying a credit card with a $10,000 limit. Then, of course, we've got taking advantage of any benefits and discounts. Now, especially if you work for a large organisation, just check with HR and find out if your company is offering any special discounts or benefits, and sort of take advantage of rewards programs. If you're not a frequent flyer, but you are a member of a flyer program, use those points to actually buy something, but buy something that you would have bought anyway with cash, not just sort of spending the money. So really take advantage of those benefits and discounts. With some of the programs, such as the Vitality program, there's some really good benefits and discounts there that are available. Now, also associated with lockdown, do you have a bad habit that you're really trying to stop? And of course, a lot of the bad habits cost money. Smoking and alcohol are the big ones in terms of, the taxes are so high on both of those products. But even small things can make a difference, coffee or even, something as silly as Diet Coke. So if you're not spending as much money on those products going out because, you're able to sort of make them at home or sort of buy them bigger in bulk at home, then be really conscious about how much you were spending and just sort of put that away into a savings account or your investment account. Now, something that some people do, it's not for everyone, but really sort of setting yourself a challenge. So how many days can you go without spending any money whatsoever? Or if that's not sort of feasible for you, setting yourself a limit. So you're only spending up to a certain limit each day. Look, we're not sort of talking about going 30 days without spending money, but even just sort of going, can you go a whole week? Or can you go 3 days? Or can you even just sort of go 2 days without spending any money whatsoever? Or any limit is sort of useful as well. So look, that was sort of some hints and tips, but this has also come back to my mindset a little bit. It's really being very, very conscious about what you're spending money on. Is it essential? And we've talked about in the group before, needs, wants, and saving. In terms of 50% of your after-tax income should be spent on needs, 30% on wants, and then that leaves 20% on saving. And so it's being really conscious about that 30%. Really only look at spending that 30% on things that mean something to you. They're wants, they're things that you're really going to get value out of. And that's really important. As we all sort of earn a little bit more over time as we get older in terms of salary increases and what have you, it's really easy just to get used to that higher income. It's easy to forget that we all sort of lived on lower incomes when we first started working. And of course, life changes, families get bigger, etc. But really just sort of focus on what you're spending money on. And I want to sort of make sure that everyone knows this is not about making, everyone to live on bread and water. We need to enjoy life as well. You want to, everyone works hard for money. You do want to get the most out of it. It's just being really mindful about what you're spending your money on to make sure that you are getting the most out of it and you're not sort of left at the end of the month wondering where your money each month and you've got no savings at the end of each month to show for it. And of course, the last sort of point here is once you do start saving and investing, it really becomes easier. And we've seen this over time with clients where they really sort of over a little bit of time see the benefit of this compound interest effect. Once you start putting money away and then you're earning dividends or interest on the money, and then you're adding to savings on the investment account through that income, then you sort of see the compound effect of how that sort of grows more quickly over time. So even though starting 5,000 may not seem a lot at a particular time, it really does make a difference over time with that compound just sort of growing and growing. And of course, we all have to sort of start somewhere. So I'm hoping that everyone sort of found that a little bit useful. Now, for many people, of course, it's not relevant, but feel free to share. Of course, we have this video on YouTube as well, not just in the Facebook group, of people, particularly if you've got friends or even kids who are looking, sort of getting started, and just a few helpful hints in relation to how they can sort of start getting some money saved in terms of that first deposit or that first start with the investment account. It really all sort of make a difference. But as always, would love to hear from anyone in the comments in relation to any extra tips that you may have that you'd like to share in the group that I haven't mentioned, or anything else that you'd sort of like to hear from us. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone is staying safe, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.